What's up, it's Emilio, and there's so much to tell you about my 6-month experience with the MacBook Pro. If you're on the fence about buying one, this video can help you. Let's get started. Apple makes some good looking laptops. They're light enough to carry around and sturdy enough that you don't have to worry about them. So let's start off with the good. The screen is a slight bump in size from last year, now at 16 inches, and there's a 500 nit display with P3 wide color support and variable refresh rate down to 48 Hz, which is perfect if you're a content creator. Apple now supports 4K Dolby Vision HDR content in the Apple TV app with a recent update. Now on to the speakers. The speakers in this thing are just the loudest I've ever heard in any laptop, and it gives a lot of dedicated speakers a run for their money. It supports Dolby Atmos content, and funny story actually, the other day I was listening to this video and I could have sworn that there was someone in my room. I was like, what? Oh, I was like, okay, it's just really good surround sound. I'm not even joking with you here. Go check it out in the store and you will not regret it. It's just incredible. And now onto the microphone. Apple says the mics in this system are studio quality, and they would be right. Whatever you have to do, streaming, anything, will sound amazing coming out of the microphones in this laptop. So let's listen to a sound test right now.
This is a microphone test, and I have to say, overall, it sounds really good for a microphone on a laptop and compares nicely to my DSLR audio setup.
The trackpad's going to be the main way that you interface with your computer, so it's important to get right. The trackpad's large, has good tracking, good scrolling, good speed. Overall, it's the best trackpad of any laptop. And moving on to the typing experience. The typing experience in this thing is incredible. There's now a scissor switch mechanism, which is like other laptops, but this one feels more stable and really similar to the ones that come in an iMac, if you're familiar with that. And moving on to the ports in this thing are incredible. You have 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports, and say what you want about Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C, but they're, in my opinion, the only things you need on your laptop. It's the future, so every peripheral pretty much supports it. And I'll actually link you down to some of my favorite ones. Things that I use all the time, like a battery pack that recharges my Mac to nearly 100%, an SSD drive that lets you store files and transfer them to other computers, and just a couple other things, so check that out. Now on to the cooling. The fans in the new Pro spin up a lot more than in previous ones, but they don't sound nearly as bad as any gaming laptop or even like my old Dell or Acer. I can edit Final Cut, process raw files, mess around in Premiere Pro, and it just stays nice and cool and quiet. There's increased fan speeds, increased fan blades, thicker heat pipes, and just a better thermal engine overall. Apple has really made this thing for pros finally. Moving on to processor and graphics. There's 3 processor options, so stick around to the end to figure out which one works best for you. There's a 6-core i7-9750H, an i9-9880H, which is 8 cores, and at the top end, a 9980HK processor, also 8 cores. So we'll talk about that at the end. The updated 7nm graphics in this machine are awesome. AMD did a really good job. They run similarly to a GTX 1660 from Nvidia, but cooler and with less power. I can run most games at 1200p at 60 frames per second, process 4K HEVC HDR footage with no problem at all, chew through 64 megapixel images on Photoshop, just a lot of stuff. The limitation is really whatever you want to do with it. And compared to previous MacBooks, it is just heaps and bounds better. Now, it's no gaming laptop, but for what it is, it does a really good job.
We are running the single and multi-core benchmark from Geekbench 5. It does a ton of tests to see what the CPU is capable of. And as you can see, the level of performance that we get out of this is very favorable amongst other 8-core processors. And this is the 9980HK i9.
There's 3 options for graphics. There's the 5300M, which comes with 4 gigs of VRAM, and the 5500M that come with 4 gigs of VRAM at the higher end. And at the absolute max, you can get 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Now on to storage and memory. The storage on this machine is lightning fast. It's a PCIe SSD built into the computer, so you get 2.5 gigabytes of read and write speed. I can process up to 8K footage, raw, no problem, and it just really makes a difference when you're chewing through files and looking and opening programs, whatever you have to do on this thing, it's just blazing fast. And now onto the RAM. There's 16 gigs in both models of DDR4 2666 megahertz RAM. There's options for 32 or 64 depending on what you need, so stick around and we'll talk about which use cases that might be important for. And now on to the bad. Unfortunately, not everything is perfect in this machine, and that sort of starts with the touch bar. The touch bar, for me, adds nothing to the user experience. For me, it's faster to use keyboard shortcuts, and most apps don't take advantage of it in any meaningful way. For next generations of MacBook Pro, I hope Apple either removes it or improves it. The FaceTime HD camera. This is your webcam, and it honestly is just not great. I know people don't buy laptops for their webcam, but it would be nice to see a 1080p sensor. So yeah, as you can see, honestly, not that great of a webcam, but what can you say? Now onto the pricing. There's two main options and they're both configurable. For $2,400, you get a half a terabyte of storage, an i7 6-core processor, and 16 gigs of RAM. For $2,800, you get an 8-core i9 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and 1 terabyte of storage. These are of course configurable, so it's important that you figure out exactly which one you need. Apple offers discounts for education, veterans, and through their certified refurb online store. Save yourself a little bit of money. You can possibly save up to $300 to $500 on certain models. So definitely check that out and see what works best for you. Now, whether or not any of these prices are worth it really depend on what you're doing with the computer. For me, it's important to have something that is reliable, that's just super high performing, and if something goes wrong, I don't want to have to lug it over to Geek Squad or browse the web for parts. I would rather just be able to call up or visit a company and within a few hours or a few days have my issue resolved. So that is for me why I choose a Mac in this case. And last but not least is power limitations. Now this is important but also very technical, so stick with me here and I think we'll both learn something. Watts are a measure of power. For example, a 100 watt hour battery can give 100 watts of power for 1 hour. Simple enough. Apple designs their computers or any laptop manufacturer around a certain max wattage, and for the MacBook Pro 16, that is 100 watts. Now that's great in theory, but the MacBook Pro is actually stifled by the amount of power it can output. And this is not a problem if you're watching Netflix, browsing the web, or using Facebook or something. You might only use 9 or 10 watts of power, which, if we do a little bit of quick math, equates to about 10 or 11 hours of battery, which is awesome. But when using high performance apps, the CPU can use up to 90 or 80 watts of power. The GPU can use up to 65 watts of power. Throw in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, the bright display, whatever peripherals you have connected, and all of a sudden you're looking at over 170 watts of power. Now, like I said before, Apple's Mac can't output more than 100 watts at a time. So something has to give, and in this case, it's a constant battle between who gets more power, the CPU or the GPU. And that can lead to some performance drops in certain scenarios. It's not too much of a problem in optimized apps like Final Cut Pro, but it's really an uphill battle for things like Blender, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and other less optimized apps. So in short, this again is no gaming computer and it's not a desktop, so there's some trade-offs to make in this case. Now for me, this still leads to a less than perfect but still great gaming experience. I can still get 60 frames per second, but there are certain noticeable performance drops in some cases. And I actually have a video coming out that will go into this a little bit further. Now, which computer should you get specifically? I think it really depends on what kind of work you're going to be doing, and so let's break this up into a few different types of workflows. Now, for photo editors, Lightroom and Photoshop can take advantage of 8-core processors just fine. So that's going to be the first upgrade that you want to do. And it can also take advantage of 32 gigabytes of RAM in certain scenarios. So if you're working with large libraries of files at one time, then those will be the first upgrades that you want to do. Extra GPU power won't really make much of a difference, so you can skip out on those upgrades. For video editing, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve take advantage of GPU power to the absolute max. I would start off just with the $27.99 model, and even that one will be perfect for most scenarios. And if there's extra money left over, then you want to go for the $100 upgrade for the GPU. And if you still have a couple extra dollars, then you can go for a storage upgrade. Now for 3D work, this is going to be some of the most taxing stuff that your computer can do. So you might want to start off with the $27.99 model that has the 8-core upgrade, and the first thing you'll want to do is go for the upgrade on the graphics and then go for the upgrade on the RAM. Just the absolute maximum performance that your computer can get will greatly benefit from those two. With any of these, the extra slight bump in CPU power only if you feel like you absolutely need it, but there's only about a 6 to 7% performance gain in most scenarios, going from the 8-core i9 to the Max 9980 HK processor for, I think it's like $200. Now for creative professionals and novice users at the slightly lower end, the $2399 model should be more than enough for most of the things that you're going to be doing. If you really need to do an upgrade, I would say go for the storage option. It's always nice to have more storage on your computer, especially if you don't like lugging things around. Gaming doesn't see a significant boost between 6 and 8 cores, and doesn't see a big boost between 4 and 8 gigs or between the 5300 and the 5500M model. The reason that more VRAM doesn't help in this case is because the graphics can't run at high enough of a resolution to actually make use of most of that VRAM. So it's a negligible difference in performance, usually about 5 to 6 FPS, which for you could be worth it, but for most it might not be. So for any of these configurations, storage is really depending on what you need. I'll tell you about my use case. I don't like having a ton of accessories with me at once. I just prefer to have the computer on its own and to keep all my files on the device. Instead of having to rely on the cloud for every file that I have, I keep my photos, videos, music, and movies all on my device, along with Final Cut Pro projects, Photoshop files, etc. So I went for the 2 terabyte option, which was for me worth it. But for most people, 1 terabyte should be more than enough. Conclusions. For my use, this machine is perfect. It lets me get everything I need to get done as fast as possible. And as creative professionals, content creators, and pro users, we make the trade-off between portability, performance, and price. And that's something that we just have to deal with and figure out what works best for our use cases. But for most people who don't need all that power and performance, it just might not be worth it. Alright, so that is about it for this video. Again, my name is Emilio and I've been doing this for a couple of years. So if you would like to help out, go ahead and drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what kind of content you want to see from me in the future and I will do my best to make it happen. My next couple of videos are going to be gaming related. One is going to be on G-Sync and the other on bootcamp gaming performance. I'm going to start a regular release schedule every Friday, so definitely stay tuned for that. Well, that's about it for now and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.